Let's come back to what was the breaking news at the top of this hour. The UK, the first country in the world to approve Merck's antiviral pill. It's a drug called molnupiravir, and it is the first oral antiviral treatment. So the first pill for the illness to get the green light anywhere, not an intravenous. This is the big difference. We've been watching this story very closely since the data first came out. Merck suggesting that the pill could cut the chance of dying or hospitalization in certain patients by half. So this is the UK first. The company has also submitted its data to other regulatory agencies, including Health Canada. It is reviewing it for approval here, and Merck is in early discussions to sell the pill to Canada. That is the starting point for today's discussion with Dr. Matthew Outen, who's an attending physician in the Division of Infectious Diseases at the Jewish General Hospital and an assistant professor at McGill University in Montreal. Welcome back, Dr. Outen.
Thank you for having me on, Heather.
Just in time for the breaking news about something that I know we've already discussed, but here we are, the UK going ahead to give conditional authorization to the use of molnupiravir, this pill. Tell us more about the pill and what you think in terms of the significance of this move.
For those of your viewers who are familiar with another antiviral medication that we use against influenza that we call oseltamivir or Tamiflu, this is a similar kind of product. And particularly what it is, as you very correctly pointed out, it's the first oral medication that shows efficacy against preventing severe disease in patients who have COVID-19, provided that they're treated early on in their course of symptoms and that they have risk factors for progressing to severe disease.
So the fact that they're going ahead with this, not an intravenous, and that's something, we'll see it with real world experience, I guess, with this pill. There's been a lot of excitement about this as a groundbreaking change.
It certainly has that potential. I would say that amongst other things, the fact that it's pill means you don't need all of the infrastructure that goes with the administration of intravenous medications, which up until this point is what we've had for therapeutics for COVID-19. Certainly, if you can prevent severe disease, and the trial that this approval is based on showed a 50% relative risk reduction in severe disease, i.e. people either needing to be hospitalized or dying from COVID-19, that is certainly not a small relative risk benefit, because if at the end of the day, if you can stop people from needing to go into hospital, then that actually both obviously helps that individual patient as well as helps the healthcare system.
Okay. Something else that is breaking this morning. You always join us on days when there are big breaking COVID stories, but we've talked because provinces are getting underway with their flu campaigns right now, their flu shot campaigns. The WHO, the World Health Organization, has just released an advisory and some data that proves, according to the WHO, that anybody can get the COVID-19 vaccine and the flu vaccine, the influenza vaccine, at the same time, and there's no decrease in effectiveness. So go ahead and get both. And I'm wondering, again, we've talked about this. What would you say in terms of the WHO message to underscore this?
I think it helps bring some clarity to that situation, because we are in the Northern Hemisphere moving into influenza season. Most provinces either have already started or are just about to start their seasonal influenza campaign. So it is good to have this extra level of reassurance. Honestly, it comes as no surprise. I guess the one clinical note I would add is that anytime you do multiple interventions at the same moment, if there were any side effects that happen in the next few days, you're always left wondering which of the two it is. So if for some reason monitoring for side effects is particularly important in an individual case, you still might want to separate them by a little bit, just so you have a sense as to the relation in time to which immunization you got.
Okay, that is a key point of clarity. And I think I want to be clear. You can get both. I don't think the WHO was saying simultaneously. Certainly in some jurisdictions, for example, Ontario moving into the boosters now, the third shots, expanding eligibility, and saying when you go in for that third shot booster, you can get at the same time a flu shot. The WHO is saying that you can get both at different times, and there is no decrease in efficacy in either of those vaccines. I have you there to talk about the Quebec decision to roll back, to retreat from the decision to make vaccination mandatory for healthcare workers in the province because of a concern about staffing levels, potential shortages. What was your reaction when you heard that word from the minister yesterday?
It was a mixed reaction. Certainly, once the province started backing away from the original October 15th deadline, it certainly looked like the writing was on the wall for this. And it's, in a way, strictly from the point of view of medical science, I think it is a shame. Don't get me wrong, I'm thrilled to see, as they announced yesterday, that 97% of healthcare workers in Quebec have received the vaccination. And I'm glad to see that there's recognition that this really is something that should be considered important, and really even in the role of professional ethics. What can we as a profession do to protect the health and the lives of those most vulnerable patients that we're looking for? And vaccination is very important in that. So I'm hoping that the province still re-emphasizes the importance even of vaccination for the entire population and for the 3% of the healthcare workers who are left. On the same time, you have to see that they're, in a sense, bowing to pragmatics. The healthcare system is already greatly under stress, and losing healthcare workers right now would disadvantage everybody, even people who have gone and gotten vaccinated, done all the proper things they can do to protect their health. So it's a matter of stability in the healthcare system for as many people as possible.
Well, and that certainly was the argument from Minister Dubé. 97%, but that still leaves 8,000 healthcare workers in Quebec with not vaccination status, and 5,000 of those have direct contact with patients. How can this make the system safer if there are 5,000 healthcare workers in direct contact with potentially vulnerable patients?
So the modification that the provincial government made to this plan was to require that those healthcare workers who aren't vaccinated get tested a minimum of 3 times per week, as a way of trying to eliminate anyone who shows up with early and presumably asymptomatic disease. So it's not ideal, because presumably that means there could be spacing of about 48 hours between successive tests, and it is possible that you could start to develop the disease and even be infectious during that window period. It certainly would reduce the risk of workplace transmission, which in a healthcare system, if we're serious about dedicating ourselves to the benefit of our patients, we want to do everything we can to reduce the risk of people acquiring extra disease when they show up in the system.
So again, just on a finer point, I mean, the symbolism of all of this potentially to anti-vaxxers. But when you were on our network before talking with John Northcott, I know you expressed concern about working alongside someone who was unvaccinated. Potentially, what does it say about other means of being safe and following healthcare guidelines and protocols? For you, given this, I mean, what do you think in your own immediate surroundings? Would you be willing to continue working alongside someone who has not been vaccinated at this point?
I guess there's a few things. One of the things that I think should still give everybody some level of reassurance is that we're not relying on vaccination as the one and only means. So within a healthcare system, healthcare institution like a hospital, for example, we're still practicing many other levels of activities that will reduce disease prevention. We're wearing masks all the time when we're in close contact with others. We're wearing other protective equipment. We're washing our hands frequently. All of those things also add levels of protection. So that, I think, is something that keeps both the patients as well as the healthcare workers safe as well. And under those kinds of circumstances, I think it becomes a safer alternative. Don't get me wrong. I like the emphasis that was placed during the news conference yesterday on trying to enact kind of a culture shift to make people realize that we need to run our systems under the principles of science. So, for example, there's recognition that anyone who will be coming into as new employees into the healthcare system in Quebec will be required to be vaccinated. So that now makes it very, very clear. If that's going to be a problem for you, then this is not the career path for you. So I'm glad that that kind of philosophy change appears to be underway.
Dr. Outen, thanks. I appreciate your perspective, particularly on that issue. Right at the top of our news today from Montreal with us. Thanks.
Thank you, Heather.